I have never seen such an impressive man. While others are struggling to survive in the wild, he has already built himself an impressive bamboo shelter. The space inside is not only enough for one person to live comfortably, but the spacious living room allows for complete freedom. It is definitely the best choice for outdoor campers. The man's name is Defa, and he just turned 28 this year. Because his wife went to give birth, he decided to settle in the wild. Happening to see some small papayas by the roadside, he picked a few and was immediately delighted. After passing through the dense jungle, he found a large rock ahead. The space on the rock was very spacious, and the small stream below could perfectly solve the water problem. So Defa immediately decided to build his new home here. He took out his treasured knife and chopped down a large tree close to the rock, as its trunk would greatly encroach on his future living space. Afterward, he thoroughly cleaned the rock, making it much tidier. However, the surface of the rock was still uneven and could not be directly used for building a new house. So Defa went to the nearby stream to collect various sizes of stones, each weighing no more than 50 pounds, as he couldn't carry more than that. Next, he gathered a pile of clay, added some river water, and mixed it to create a batch of wild cement mortar. He applied this mortar to the rock and stacked the collected stones to build a solid wall around the area. Seeing how straight the wall turned out, it was clear that Defa had at least 5 years of bricklaying experience. After building the wall, he collected a bunch of small stones from the river and filled the gaps between them until it was fully packed, forming a very smooth foundation. On top of the foundation, he used stones to strike the rock and then found several logs to stand around the edge of the foundation to serve as the house's main supports. For the outer part, Defa planned to use bamboo. He collected many small bamboo poles from the forest, inserted one end into the soil back at the base, tied the middle part to the nearby posts, and bent the other end into an arc shape. He then used bamboo as a boundary, sawing off the parts of the posts that extended beyond the boundary. Next, he notched the tops of the logs, installed them between two posts, leaving space for the shelter's main door. After that, he added more logs to the tops of the posts, securing them with iron nails, thus forming the entire framework of the shelter. This unique cylindrical design saved materials and made the structure more aesthetically pleasing. Considering the rainy season, Defa wrapped the framework with a layer of rainproof material, securely fixing it to prevent rainwater from seeping in. Then he collected more bamboo, cut them to the right size, and fixed them onto the framework, arranging them closely to form a roof. Once the roof was done, he also used bamboo to cover the sides, filling all the gaps to create a tight wall. Taking advantage of the good lighting, Defa assembled a frame in a corner using several logs, covered the top with bamboo tubes, creating a sturdy double bed. He tested it and found the firmness just right. Considering the large temperature fluctuations in the mountains, Defa gathered small stones to build a fireplace inside the room. He used a layer of fresh mortar as the base, stacked the stones to form walls, added a few logs on top of the walls, and built a chimney. For safety, the chimney's height had to exceed the roofline to vent smoke outside. While waiting for the mortar to dry, Defa sealed the front wall in the same way. After that, he collected dry firewood and lit a fire in the fireplace, which had excellent ventilation. As dusk fell, Defa went to the stream and caught several small crabs and a few small fish from a small pool. Returning to the base, he took out the wild fruits he had picked earlier, cut open the shells, scooped out the pulp, mixed it with some rice, and stuffed the mixture back into the bamboo tubes. He placed the small fish and crabs into the fruit shells, put the bamboo tubes and shells into the fireplace, and roasted them. After an hour of waiting, the rice in the bamboo tubes was fully cooked, and the fish in the shells was aromatic. Defa took a bite, and it was incredibly delicious. After eating, he lay on his bed and fell asleep peacefully. The next morning, he continued cutting bamboo tubes because the wild fruits he had stored were depleted. Therefore, he prepared to make a few traps to solve his food problem. He made small holes on the side of the bamboo tube, inserted a wooden plug, passed a thin string through the bottom of the plug, and bent the bamboo strip at the front, hooking it onto the internal wooden plug. Now, when any prey touches the hook inside, the bamboo strip will automatically spring out, and the prey will be tightly bound by the string inside. Next, Defa put some bait in the traps and selected suitable places to set them up. While waiting, he prepared a new batch of mud to improve the insulation of the shelter. Evenly applying it on the outer walls. With his skilled plastering technique, anyone saying mud can't stick to walls would surely be proven wrong by Defa. He then added mud strips around the windows and door to create a raised rain barrier. From this angle, the shelter immediately looked much tidier. However, the rocky entrance was too uneven, making it difficult for Defa to get in and out every day. So he used mud and stones to build a few steps along the edge of the rock. While waiting for the mud to dry, he collected a pile of white stones from the roadside, soaked them in water for 50 minutes to get a batch of fine lime mud. He then cut a bamboo strip, used a knife to fashion it into a fresh brush, dipped it in the lime mud, and brushed it on the shelter's walls. This layer of mud not only provided waterproof and insulation effects, but also made the shelter look more aesthetically pleasing. The only issue was that it somewhat resembled an old-fashioned toilet from back home. To solve this, Defa went to the river, picked some red stones, crushed them into fine powder with a large rock, and mixed them with river water to create red dye, which he used to decorate the edges of the walls. Now the shelter looked much more refined. For the door, Defa planned to use logs. He cut the logs in half, peeled off the bark, laid them on 2 longer logs, and fixed them in place with wooden pegs. Creating a tight-fitting door panel. He then carved matching grooves into the door frame and attached the door panel, making the shelter much safer to live in. As night fell, Defa went into the forest to check the traps he had set earlier and caught a 2-pound rabbit. He cleaned it and roasted it in the fireplace. When it was sizzling and juicy, he took a bite, replenishing the energy he had spent during the day. The next morning, after eating some fresh wild fruits for breakfast, Defa cut more logs, chiseling grooves at the top, and fixing them onto the rocks beside the steps. Because the existing steps were very steep, he decided to build a railing for safety. After securing the posts, he inserted small bamboo poles into the grooves and tied them with vines. Giving the once ordinary rocks a luxurious look. It must be said that this guy has an eye for aesthetics. Now the construction of the entire shelter was officially complete. With the increasingly complete facilities, Defa's future outdoor life seemed more and more promising.